So welcome everybody to a new release from Eureka, and that is Karloff in Maniacal Mayhem. So all three of these films star Boris Karloff, who, icon of horror from the 30s, 40s and beyond. And this is the first Karloff collection that we've had from Eureka. We obviously also had Universal Terror, Karloff in those three films as well. And also before that, in I think 2020 it was, 2021 we had Karloff at Columbia as well. So these are the kind of things that Eureka do really, really well as far as I'm concerned. So and this is a really, really rather good set overall. I actually prefer it to the Universal Terror set. So and the first film is The Invisible Ray, which is from 1936, directed by Lambert Hillier, who also did Dracula's Daughter, also from 1936, a really rather worthy sequel to the original Dracula film. And this is a mix of science fiction and horror. Clocks in at 79 minutes long, and in the supporting cast it has Bela Lugosi, another icon of horror from the 30s and 40s, Frank Lawton, who was also in A Night to Remember, who played Bruce Ismay, the owner of White Star Line at the time, and Francis Drake, who was in Mad Love with Peter Lorre. I've not seen the film itself, but it does sound really rather interesting. So Dr. Janos Rook, played by Boris Karloff, discovers a certain type of radium that has almost magical healing properties. But the element has a dangerous side too, and it has already started affecting Rook. Consumed by paranoia, he begins to suspect that his wife is having an affair. Wild for revenge, Rook hatches a deadly plot, using his own poisoned body as a weapon to kill. So, Boris Karloff is great in the lead role. The supporting cast is really good, especially Bela Lugosi. It is well paced. The effects are still reasonably effective, because obviously to have show the effects of this radium on Boris Karloff's character, he has a glowing effect to his face and his hands. And considering they probably had to put those effects on each frame of film, they've done really, really well with it. And the plot is overall engrossing, and even though there is a little in the way of surprises, I did find this to be predominantly an engrossing affair and an entertaining one as well. So really, really solid start to this set. And it manages to match the Night Key from the Universal Terror collection, although personally I think it's a little bit better because it is actually a horror film and not a thriller. So it does have that going for it. And then from 1940 we have Black Friday. So not to do with shopping or any sales, but it is from 1940, directed by Arthur Lubin, who also did Phantom of the Opera, the 1943 version, which I really rather enjoy, as well as Footsteps in the Fog. And this is a pure horror film, but with some tiny elements of other genres added on in there as well. And it clocks in at 70 minutes long. Once again, stars Boris Karloff, obviously, but also Bela Lugosi, as well as Stanley Ridges, who I've seen 5 other films from: No Way Out, Possessed, The Seawolf, The Suspect. But the only other horror film I've seen from him is The Phantom Speaks. And it also stars Anne Nigel, and she was in The Invisible Woman, and another film we've had in a Eureka collection, Man-Made Monster, which was in the she was in the 3 monster sci-fi tales of terror. So she's come back for another release on Eureka. And it's about university professor George Kingsley, who is struck by gangsters while crossing the street, leaving him with brain damage and one of the gangsters, Cannon, paralysed. Kingsley's friend, Dr. Sovak, played by Boris Karloff, attends to both men, and when Cannon offers him a reward for aiding his recovery, Kovac transplants part of Cannon's brain into the dying Kingsley's skull, creating a dual personality. So, actually I think it was... I'm probably getting the characters mixed up with certain actors, but regardless, it's got a really rather Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of story to it, but it's ultimately an engrossing mix due to its odd additions of other genres outside of the horror genre, because there's science fiction in here with the brain transplanting. There's the gangster genre because they deal with gangsters who want to use this person to commit crimes. and obviously the gangsters are the ones that instigated this in the first place. And it's also got the psychological thriller element to it as well, because he's toying with his mind, trying to between the good and evil war between in his head. So yeah, it's really odd mix of those genres, but overall it does really work rather well. And it's also got a good cast in support of Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, and it's got solid pacing while it doesn't overstay its welcome, because it's only an hour 10. It's really rather quite short. And yeah, its science fiction element is really rather well executed, especially when it comes to depicting the two personalities that are wrestling control over one body. It is well shot, the production is solid, the score is decent, and its wraparound narrative structure, though deflating some of the tension in the plot, it does at least work. It makes sense, and yeah, joins up together really rather nicely. So yeah, to be honest, it's sort of on the side of the climax from Universe of Terror. Whereas with the Invisible Ray, I gave that 3.5 stars, which is the same as the Night Key, and this I give 3 stars, like I did with the climax. But it's slightly better than the climax, just like the Invisible Ray is slightly better than the Night Key. So yeah, overall a really, really rather solid film, although yeah, not perfect. And finally, from 1951, so we jump a fair bit ahead, we have The Strange Door. So yeah, this is directed by Joseph Pevney, who I've not seen anything from before, but it does sound like he's got a few interesting films in his back catalogue. And it clocks in 81 minutes long, so it's the longest film here. And it also stars Charles Laughton, who was in The Old Dark House and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, as well as Island of Lost Souls. They're the 3 other horror films I've seen from him, but it was also really rather fantastic in Witness for the Prosecution. So yeah, he's got a real diverse back catalogue on the go. And it also saw Sally Forrest, who was in the film noir While the City Sleeps. And yeah, this is about the wicked Alain, played by Charles Laughton, who plots an elaborate revenge against his younger brother Edmund, leading to a deadly confrontation in his dungeon death trap. So yeah, this is really, really rather solid. Easily my favourite of the 3 in this collection, which is again kind of reminiscent of the Universe of Terror collection, where the 3rd film in that collection was my favourite. And yeah, this is due to it being an effective mix of horror and drama that features a superb performance from Charles Laughton, who really looks like he's relishing in his villainous role. He's really amping it up. He's properly chewing the scenery in a lot of places. And Boris Karloff is also really rather good, along with the rest of the supporting cast. Karloff is effectively the hero of this tale. And yeah, I love the setting. It is well paced. The plot is engrossing, particularly during the first act, as you're trying to work out why Charles Laughton is doing what he is doing, and with his elaborate plot. And yeah, the finale is really rather tense. The production is solid, and it is generally entertaining. And to be honest, personally, I feel like George Lucas had watched this film back in his day, because there's a couple of elements in this that were brought forward into the Star Wars films. In particular, the ending, which features a really rather tense scene where the walls are closing in on our characters in a prison cell. Kind of reminds me of the garbage scene in Star Wars. And then there's the whole element of the daughter finding out that someone is her father when she didn't realise he was even alive at some point. So kind of reminds me of the whole Vader and Skywalker aspect of that as well. But yeah, on the whole, great film, and yeah, manages to nearly match The Black Castle. Not quite as fun as that film in some regards, but definitely a really rather good effort. So yeah, I'd say the first 2 films are better than the first 2 films in the Universe of Terror collection, and the 3rd film is slightly below, but still a 4 out of 5 star film. So yeah, I did really like the Universe of Terror collection, but it did irk me a little bit, like I said in my review of it, that it kind of sells itself as being a horror collection where only really one film is a horror film, whereas all 3 of these are a horror film in their own right. Yes, they've got added elements in terms of genres to them, but the basic premise is a horror film. So yeah, can't slate it too much on that regard, especially since, like I said, it does have a horror thread going through all of it. And you also get a booklet with it as well, which has all of the cast and credits on it as well. Plus, you've got a Radiation Sickness by Craig Ian Mann. You've got Double Date by Andrew Graves, and Strange Doors and Dark Houses by Rich Johnson, as well as viewing notes and all of the like. So yeah, there's another poster version of Black Friday, which I always like to see different poster versions. Although I think the others are basically the same. Let's find the Strange Door. Where are you? If there is one. Yeah, that looks basically the same, just in black and white. But yeah, always find these interesting to read, and I will look forward to reading those 3 write-ups. And they're across 2 discs, these films. So you got The Invisible Ray and Black Friday on the 1 disc, and A Strange Door on the 2nd disc. Weirdly enough, The Strange Door is only a U, even though I think that's got quite a bit of a violent ending to it. But yeah, overall, really, really impressive collection. I really do think Eureka excel at doing these kind of film releases. Because, yeah, not only do we have Universal Terror, but we also Karloff at Columbia. We have the 3 Monster Sci-Fi Tales. We've also had, we've had the Inner Sanctum Mysteries, and then we've had the Bela Lugosi Edgar Allan Poe adaptions, which Boris Karloff starred in at least one of those. And then we also have had the double collections of the likes of Ishiro Honda Double Future, which was great. I love those 2 films. And then we have the horror double feature of Nightwing and Shadow of the Hawk. Again, really rather interesting film. So yeah, Eureka do these kind of things far better than other companies, if any other companies do these kind of things. And yeah, it's really rather unique that they do this kind of stuff. And yeah, as per usual, we releases, you can choose the poster that you want on the artwork to show on the front of the Blu-ray there. And yeah, you've got the usual guff on the back, but there's not a lot there that really needs to be known, so it doesn't matter if you can't see that if you choose one of the other sides, because at the end of the day, most of it is on the back of the slipcover there. So yeah, which is a nice slipcover in its own right. So yeah, fantastic release. Highly recommend getting it if you haven't already. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the 3 films as much as I did. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you with the next one. Bye.